Welcome to this session of Tech Talent Talk. We are your hosts, Oliver and Birgit, and we have this series of events to bridge the gap between recruitment and engineering. Oliver, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Oliver, I'm the CEO of Press Forward, and we do sustainable hiring.
And I'm Birgit. I work as a leadership coach and engineering leader. I advise people about creating high-performing teams through culture. And we have a guest today. Today, our guest is Marc Emanuel, and he is a director of software engineering at Virtual Identity. Marc is using his deep technical experience with a complex leadership know-how to bring business forward. He wants to not take things for granted. With a lot of self-reflection, tries to guide people and businesses mindfully to their best. With the motto, as long as I give my best, I'm good enough, he is able to keep a cool mind in the heated world of tech leadership. Marc, let's talk about it. What does it mean? Even faster, even cheaper, and the challenge of change and uncertainty.
Hi. First, thanks for having me today. And to answer your question, I mean, I guess we all have experienced it somehow, either through media or yourselves. We are in time of change right now in the economy, like with a so far mild recession. Let's see how it goes. And in like technology, our field of work with the rise of AI. And for me, if I perceive it from my perspective, it's similar to the Industrial Revolution, right? So there, a lot of things got automated, a lot of things got changed, and that's where I feel like we are right now in the tech area. And you see that with a lot of big companies also cutting jobs while there's still the need for skilled workers. So that's the change. That's how you can see the change, right? So there's a need, but people lose jobs. So there's a change in skills. That's how I perceive it. And for me, that's the challenge of change and also uncertainty, because in this change, we don't know where it will end up, when it will get stable, some kind of stable again. I mean, there's always a bit of change, but right now there's a big change. So let's see where we end up. Yeah, that's how I interpret it.
And you say it's similar to the Industrial Revolution. Back then, people, like, I want to ask you a question that people had in mind back then as well. Will I still have a job after the automation, the rise of automation? Will I still have a job? Or will technology take our jobs? What do you think?
If I could answer this, I guess I would not need to work anymore. But to say that way, I would say it depends on what you would define as your job, right? I guess your job, if you are working in the tech industry, will change, as I said before. But I think if you are able to adapt, then that's you will keep your source of income. That's clear like that, because job is, again, interpretative, and you could say your job is what you're doing right now might change and not be the same thing again. And it's similar in the Industrial Revolution, right? You had people doing manual labor, and then some jobs were cut, and this is what we see also right now, the more manual labor, and it got more towards overseers or people looking that the machines do their job right, and that's where we are similarly right now, right? So if I do coding, I looked at if I get some prompts by some AI, like GitHub Copilot or something, I supervise it, and I see that the quality that I get is the right quality, but not the manual labor that much anymore.
And that's also interesting.
I want to jump in here.
Yeah,
I cannot resist. Because by training, I'm actually a historian of science and technology, which is also my topic I'm really passionate about. And what you said about the Industrial Revolution, if we would say that the characteristics are the replacement of manual labor through machine work, this is correct. But what people always underestimate, that it's not those jobs disappeared magically, and people were unemployed, it very often meant those jobs have drastically changed. They might haven't been in the same industry after all. They might had to do something completely different, but the jobs itself, they haven't changed. And in those times, back in the days in the 19th century, during the Industrial Revolution, which also had like lots of different phases, which felt completely different to the people, what we have seen there is also a high supply of workforce and a smaller supply of jobs, which gave the like factory owners or capitalists, however you call them, the power of bringing people into jobs for very little money that were not skilled for, that they didn't like, or whatsoever. I think the big difference with the times nowadays are at least two. First, in the Industrial Revolution, we are talking of the replacement of manual labor as something that you do with your hands and with your arms through machine work. Nowadays, and this is a huge difference, we are talking of the replacement of cognitive work by machines. So the people who are affected, the salary levels who are affected, the social classes that are affected, this is totally different. This is the first thing. And the second thing, we are not in the situation yet where lots of new jobs are being created to replace the old ones. We can see some jobs are popping up that haven't been existent, let's say 2 years ago. Let's just name drop a job role like an AI engineer or an AI content, whatever, that we have seen at Netflix, where there were also uprisings of screenplay writers and stuff like this 2 years ago. So we see that there are new jobs emerging, but they are very little compared to the jobs that have been cut or will be cut in the future. But for me, the biggest differentiator is that cognitive work gets replaced, which is highly paid, and not manual work, which is much lower paid.
Do you want to jump in, Birgit?
Feel free to disagree.
Yeah, I would disagree.
The only thing that I want to add is that they still try to build robots, but just more intelligent. So there's still some more like handwork labor to be replaced in the future. Mark, what do you want to add?
Yeah, from my perspective, if I look at the big things that AI is replacing right now, so coding, image generation, video generation, like these things that are in the media, for me, that's still manual work, mostly, right? So, I mean, you can use AI for inspiration and things, but if I look at the jobs that are being cut are manual, like cutting videos, for example, right? So video cutting software is a manual labor. It's not like creational process. Yes, there are creational tools out there, but the jobs that are being replaced they are cognitive in terms of, yes, I'm not doing manual labor in that way, right? But I'm clicking keys and moving the mouse. But these are the jobs that are being mostly replaced right now, as far as I can see, right? So it's the execution of the work. That's where I felt like, okay, I would disagree in that terms of not, where I also have a conflict when I always see like thought workers are being replaced. For me, there's a difference in there, or detail, which I'm missing there. Yeah.
There was, I think there's a Chinese company that has an AI as a CEO. So they tried to replace the CEO. But what I also noticed, I mean, my very first job is graphic design, and I still do graphic design, especially for Tech Talent Talk. And I see that this job hasn't been replaced, even though they are trying so hard to like make it easier or like to replace this job at all. I mean, if I were to replace a job, I would be just a normal person and say to a machine, please make me this and that. And it may work with the logo, because I have tried it, and with my knowledge, I see that it wouldn't work like that. So you still need to have the knowledge in order to make the best work, basically. So you need to as you said, Mark, you need to oversee the machine in order to comply the best practices in the job.
I want to add to the comment of Mark. I see your point. What's been replaced right now is lots of manual aspects. I like the term that you used, the executional part. If we think of cutting videos, I think also here and there we can see that cognitive work and creative aspects are starting to be replaced. I'm thinking of content production, especially content writers, copywriters, who have been the first ones who really see what AI could do. So I wouldn't say it's black and white, but I see that there's a high emphasis on the executional part, which for me connects to what we have earlier said, faster, cheaper, because it is both faster and cheaper.
And for me, it's also only a matter of time. Like looking at history, as you said, Birgit, to get the best quality, you still need the skills. But looking through different media, through even like normal products, right, that you can buy in the store, things degrade if the masses go towards, okay, I accept lower quality, and then I will also take if it's standard that I can take lower quality. I guess in some years, I don't believe in 2 or 3 years, but in 10 years we will see generated movies in the cinema or something like this, right? Because it just degrades. So if the expectation of the masses allows for this lower quality to go in, then I don't see any issue for AI taking over these jobs too, right?
I mean, we already do in certain ways. I don't know if you are into music, but since I was a child, I like classical music a lot. And everyone knows that Beethoven was able to write or to compose 9 symphonies. And the 10th one only existed as a fragment. So they let AI finishing the 10th symphony, and it was presented, I think, last year ago. No, 1 year ago. It was 2023. Sponsored by Deutsche Telekom, I think, or someone else. And the funny thing is, it wasn't even the first attempt to do that. It wasn't the first AI finishing Beethoven's work. So it might not be a movie, but it's going there.
But that's again, for me, this example would be again, the input is the mind work of somebody else, right? So you put in the fragment, which is then being extended. If
Okay,
we're going
so your differentiator is what kind of input it requires.
Yeah.
And this then leads, from your understanding, to execution or finishing something, but it's not creating something entirely new.
It could also be creating something if we come to the point that a non-expert can put something in and you get the same quality as an expert put something in, then we're at the point where I say, okay, then the jobs can be cut, because that's what would then be the end result, right? Taking Birgit's example, if I can pick somebody from the street and say, please create me a logo for this and this company, and they just put something in and you get the perfect thing that the company then chooses, okay, then you're there.
There's actually also the saying that people say, especially leaders and people who create companies, if someone can do the job for 60 or 80% in the quality that I do, then I can hire the person. And then the rest will be just, something that the person would do themselves. But I feel like exactly this point would like be similar to Mark's point. It's like someone else is doing the execution part, and I just oversee what is happening. And so still I would need to, as the company owner, I would still need to do the job. Yeah, so this is my job to do this. And so I find until this is, as Mark said, 100%, I still would have the job to do this, but I can do this faster because someone else is helping me or something else, right? Mark,
And that's where we get into the changing like markets, right? Because that's not where AI is impacting your job, but the market. Because if people can do it cheaper, you have to also go cheaper to be competitive. And that's where we come to.
What I see, and I cannot really prove that, it's just, let's say, intuition. For a couple of years, at least since this book, 4 Hours Work Week, got released, where lots of people recognized that they can hire freelancers from overseas to do assistant work, creative work, whatever kind of work that can be performed online. Lots of tasks and projects were shifted to overseas because those folks were able to perform the task in a cheaper way. I have seen people and tasks, and actually did it myself even, that I replaced those kinds of tasks and project by software in the couple of weeks and months. So I think we might feel the job loss here in Germany and in Europe and the Western world, but the majority of jobs are being cut overseas with all those virtual assistants and however you call them.
So I would also jump in with a gut feeling there, also not knowing it, right? So I'm not informed on how it's going there, but my guess is that's not, we're maybe on the brink to seeing that there, but there's still if you replace people with tools, you need to educate the users of the tools, right? And I guess it's still, we are not, like earlier it's called like digital native, now we're maybe AI native, right? We're not AI native yet. Like the work generation is not AI native yet. So I would say it's still a huge investment to replace workers by AI, because still people are using AI to perform. It's still just a tool, not a replacement, right? And that's where I say if we come to the point that the everyday person can use it, then yes, there would be a big wave of job loss and job cuts, bigger than it already is, right? But yeah.
There's just one example coming to my mind. I remember in the late 90s, that's a very German thing to do. I was a teenager back in school. I did kind of they call it driving license, to be able to use a computer. It's like a certificate that you know the basics of how to use a certain software. And as a part of it, we also had to learn HTML to write little websites. Right now, like no one would do that anymore because they're website builders to perform the exact task for people that are not trained in HTML. I think this is exactly what you are talking about. It's this shift of digital native. And now we are not AI native yet. We still have to train people on HTML, to use this metaphor, but we don't have the website builders yet.
But I feel like that we are not training people on HTML. And this also brings me to a question to Mark. Mark, you're working in a full service agency, right? So tell us how you see the economical change in your work in a full agency.
So, I mean, what we just talked about, right? So it's getting faster, cheaper. So that's definitely the gist of it. So, I mean, as a full service as an agency, we have clients, right? So we don't only do our own products. It's basically our core business is client work.
And this can be websites
And I mean,
too.
Sorry?
This can be websites too, so HTML.
Yeah, correct. We're also doing HTML, and I feel like I wanted to connect to what you said, Oliver, but first we'll answer your question. Very good. So how do I experience it personally? For me, I just noticed that, I mean, you might call it, it's a small agency, right? You might call it middle management. So I'm director development. So I'm responsible for people. So my personal job changed towards like, I noticed it since the beginning of last year, 2024. I'm much more involved in business itself. So change focus from tech, from making sure the people that I hire, that I care for, can do their job, towards, okay, let's see that the right business is also coming for us, and that's sustainable business, right? And I'm much more invested there nowadays. So this is a big change that I noticed for my work, how my work changed in that time. I mean, with all the the clients and the general business, with the recession happening, there's a budget cut somewhere, there's less budgets available in the future, is our guess, right? So we don't know yet what will come this year, but we will see. And we just have to focus more on, okay, what's sensible, what's actually, which money is used the best way, right? So that's how we look at it.
Exactly. And how do you see this also for your department? Like, how do you see that the work of the engineers has changed?
So I feel like, so if we go towards that, the change already has happened. So right now we are in the aftermath of the change, and we are trying to find the new way of working. And the change that I'm talking about is the AI replacing what we so far called like the simple executional work, things that you would train juniors on, right? So work that you can do without a high risk of failure, right? That's always the question that you ask. So if there's a high risk behind it, we have to be more careful. And these things are becoming like just writing manually. Let's take the example, manually writing code is more and more being replaced by AI, or being cheaper done by AI. So we are right now and still working on that. So what's our new definition of like juniors? Because you cannot just not hire junior anymore, right? You need to give possibility for people to grow. Otherwise, you will not have, for yourself and for the general market, not have any skilled workers in the future. And second, you need to grow the next generation of workers.
So the new definition of junior would be, you need to be able to use AI in order to create code.
So this is where maybe it's a nice bridge towards what you said, Oliver, right? So HTML is not being trained anymore. And we said before, so far we still, to get good quality, you need the expertise, right?
To reach a certain level,
to
reach a certain quality.
Correct. And that's where, like, also looking at interviews, right? If I'm hiring, also much more looking at what do you call it? Being
Soft
able
skills.
to soft skills, or like learning ability, or being able to grasp concepts, to explain concepts, right? Not the core knowledge, but if I believe that if I get the person who is interested and ambitioned, that they can go there. That's what I'm much more looking for than before, like with coding challenges, for example, looking for, can they write good HTML code, right? That's not what I'm looking for anymore, but rather the interest, like they are interested in the topic, and the ambition for that.
Mm-hmm. So you say that take-home work challenges are decreasing, and whiteboard challenges might be increasing.
What was the second? What
whiteboard challenges might be increasing, and take-home challenges might be decreasing, because we're focusing on the understanding of things instead of writing things, right?
I don't know if they are, but for us, or for me, like if I'm doing interviews, I'm not just sending out code challenges, but like code challenges with a presentation afterwards, right? To get into communication, conversation about the product that
Yeah.
they produce.
I want to add two things here. It just came to my mind that I have hired a software engineer recently, not to write code for me, but to set up automation. And I think this is a good example of how the role of a software engineer might change. And it relates directly to what you have just said. The core competence I'm looking for here when I've hired this software engineer are basically two. First, to be able to set up the tools, to use something that is existing, to adapt it to the way that I need it to be adapted, and last but not least, to be able to explain it to me in a way that I'm able to perform the tasks myself. Which is, in your example, explaining the code that they have written and presenting the results and the learnings, which is also a shift that I see in the world of recruitment. Finally, putting a higher emphasis on soft skills, because this is what really matters on the long run. Hard skills, you might be able to learn. That's just a matter of effort and time, basically. Okay, sometimes also talent. Let's be fair. I would be a terrible violin player, but soft skills and personality is something that can be trained and changed as well, but it takes much more effort.
I also think that playing violin can be trained up to a certain level, without talent. This is how I learned drawing. I don't think I have talent, but I have an acceptable competency in drawing that people think you tell me, hey, you draw good. Yeah, but I still I still believe there are a lot of people who can draw good, and this is the same also for coding. I don't think that I have a exceptional talent in mathematics or computer science, but I'm capable of delivering acceptable code. Yeah, so even with some best practices that I also have learned with effort, not with talent, and therefore I also wanted to say something with the automation. So hiring engineers with automation, I still think that understanding for flows that automate things, no code, low code solutions, there we still need to have a certain amount of understanding, especially for logic and especially for things that will create an output inside the flow. Because I have just recently noticed myself, if you don't have the understanding, you will create a really crappy output of the flow that will create a huge pain for anything and anyone who is consuming this flow. And so this is why I think that we still need to hire talent in terms of, yes, they can have talent, but they also may not, but still have put in effort in order to learn it, to have a good flow, low code, no code solutions, whatever, so that also those automations can run smoothly. That's the same thing with I need to oversee whatever image or code is being created in order to understand it, in order to improve it. That's the experience.
I like that you said, so you need to have the right setup, right? Have the right knowledge there. I mean, that also turns into what you said, Oliver, is the soft skills. Like if you didn't name it by word, but for me the missing word is the passion, right? So if there's a passion behind it, passion is the motor that keeps it running, right? And if I look at a human as an individual as a machine, right? So you have the right worker, if the input channel is right, the output channel is right, and the motor is running through. That's if I look at that, output channel is how can they communicate, right? Input channel is how can they grasp concepts, understand, and then the passion is the motor. And that's coming to this question again from the coding challenge, with the coding challenge, I can check this process for code, right? Just a pure coding challenge. But as you said, Oliver, also in the future, I need especially for us in an agency, right? We work with clients. Our core business is not coding. Our core business is communication.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be able to talk to people efficiently. So that's why soft skills, to test them, I like to have this coding challenge first. You can grasp the input, because if you want later, you can look at the coding challenge. I formulate it in a way that clients would give us tasks to do, and it's not very clear. So you need to be able to understand what they actually want, what's in there, what's the message behind it, and then do the coding, show some investment there, and then do the presentation, where I can then ask again. In these roles, in my interviews, I play the client, right? So I ask questions as a client would. So in simple language, not technical terms, but could I do this thingy on the website? And then again, they have to grasp what I want to say and answer
Yes.
the right answer. So for me, that's the check of this process.
What I see here, what you have described are basically 2-3 things that I find are quite essential. First, companies are striving to get things done faster and cheaper. And also what we expect from the people actually performing these tasks have drastically shifted. And let's face the reality, if the tasks are shifted, if expectations are changing, this puts people under quite some pressure, especially if the overall expectation is to get things done faster and cheaper, and then also in a different way. Pressure and tension and stress, those are all mental things. I'm wondering how you, based on your expertise, Mark, and how you do personally, how you see other leaders doing it, how do you address this mental pressure at work in times that are changing so drastically?
I mean, that's a big topic you're opening up there right now. Mental health at work. Yeah.
I've just opened Pandora's box.
Yeah. From the most top level for me, the answer is this can only work with trust, right? So you need, as a manager, to care for your employees. You need trust in both ways, right? You need to trust your employees, and the employees need to trust you. And then the follow-up question, obviously, is how do you get to trust? And that's not something that you can, other than if you're a very, very skilled engineer, right? So there are people, which I've seen also, there was an episode from you where you talked about manipulation, communication, right? That's the topic there. I don't want to manipulate in a negative way there. But that's where we come to can you create trust? And for me, looking at that personally, and there I would say I'm blessed with the company I work at, because the culture there is very, very open. It's in the core values also, openness there, and braveness and honesty. So I feel like I'm able in all conversation to honestly say how I stay, how I'm feeling right now, how I perceive things. And so far, I got the feedback also from my employees that helps them to also open up, right? So it's like an invitation. If I open up, they can open up to me. And I honestly, if we come to what's this, we come from the pressure path, right? So pressure gets too high and things like this. I have weeklies with my employees, and I just ask how it's going, right? So how is it going? How are you feeling right now at work? And then it's twofold. First, I listen to their answer. Second, I watch them, right? Because the body language is also part of it. And if somebody is very calmly saying all is good, then I asked more. Okay, so what's good? How is work? So I try to get a feeling for that, and then if I get to a point I'm insecure, I name that and say, I'm insecure, how you're doing, is that right? And that's the pathway. Then have to be able to know from your company, right? Are you allowed to do that in that context, or is that, like, as a manager, a dangerous path to prompt such things on your employees?
You mean, like, first of all, I like that you ask a deeper question when someone says, I'm good. Do you mean this when you ask, so when you say you feel insecure, what does it mean? So meaning, are you allowed to ask questions in a way that makes you like a psychotherapist?
Sometimes I feel like I'm in that role, but it's more like, so I always stay with myself. That's the most important thing. Like I learned early on in leadership, I stay with myself and not just put assumptions out there. Or if I put assumptions out there, I name them explicitly and say, this is an assumption, is this right? But normally if I, for example, stay with the example, somebody calmly says, I'm good. And then I would say for myself, so you now said you're good. I saw no smile, no emotion. I'm insecure if you're fine or if there's something. So you are allowed to open up to me if you want to. Don't feel pressured there. But I'm here for you to listen to you. That's how I would answer them. Not to pressure them into that, but to voice my insecurity in that moment. So stay with myself. Yeah.
Where do you draw the boundaries when it comes to opening up yourself and letting the others open up?
I could not name an answer to you. For me, that's in the moment, right? If I feel uncomfortable, I would voice that then for myself. Like, I guess because it never happened so far, right? There were no issues like that were very personal. I guess then I would also draw a board and say, okay, that's too personal for me. I'm not sure, but this never happened so far as I remember. And there are also some topics when, like, if it gets inappropriate for work, right? If also didn't happen so far, but if people say, yeah, I feel lazy today, I'm not doing work because I don't want to, that's then inappropriate, right? So because we are still in the relationship of manager and employee, and that's inappropriate. Like, and then I named that also. So thanks for sharing that. I feel like it's inappropriate to do this right now. Let's then talk why you feel that way. I would love in the future to not do this again. Right?
And this brings me back to, like, managers accidentally become psychotherapists, because the reason why someone feels lazy or feel not doing work is probably of some, like, hormone missing, which could be dopamine, the mix of dopamine and adrenaline. So which also means, like, let's talk about sleep, let's talk about health and balance and stuff like that. So the work-related term that we should take care of, or like that we look for, is that the workforce should be able to have enough energy, like they do stuff in the free time, yeah, and they also sleep. They should sleep, and so they should have enough energy to do the work, which, like, and this is we never have talked about in a political or in terms of law, how much should we as managers, like, look into how much energy someone has left while doing their free time stuff. Yeah. So when they come back to work, that they have enough energy. So if we have
Are you saying we should do this, or it's just that was not talked about?
This is just a question that I put into the room. Should we even do this?
We are actually doing this already.
We are actually doing this?
Yeah, we're doing that through the back door. Like, why do you think vacation days were invented? Vacation days were invented not to send someone to the Bahamas, but to recharge their batteries in order to be able to perform their tasks. This is like the economical reason that vacations were invented, and I'm not kidding. This is because employers insist on their employees taking their vacation days. Second, if you look on allowing your employees side hustles, like a second job or freelancing stuff, employers always look through the lenses of, is this employee then still able to perform their main tasks here? Because this should be their main occupation.
Yeah.
And if an employer says, no, I don't allow you to do side hustles, it's because exactly of that.
Yeah.
And you will see employers or leaders then starting to mumble, you don't have enough energy, but you are able to, I don't know, have this gig, speak at this conference, whatever. Because those mechanisms are working from behind. It's not directly that they already tell them what to eat and how to sleep. We had that in the past, by the way. I'm not kidding. If you think of the steel mills from Krupp and of other companies where they had built houses next to the factories, those houses for the employees, they came with a lot of control, like no alcohol, for example, because of that reasons.
Yeah. And this is sometimes the thing. So let's put the side hustles away, and let's say someone wants to do some sports. Yeah, 1 or 2 hours of sports in a day. Let's have the person have 2 hours of commuting to the work, 8 hours of work, and then have, like, let's say a total amount of 1 hour to commute to the sports place, and then have like 1 or 2 hours of sports. I feel like in this case it might already be someone might lack the sleep on these days, because there's not much amount of time left for doing such things. Yeah, so I feel like there is just with the 8 hours of work per day, there's just really a small amount of time left to do anything else that might also be beneficial for the health of a person. And so this reduces the sleep time and therefore also the energy on the next day. And we're talking about also humans as engineers, right? And so, Mark, we think, is it true that we think that engineers are people too, and therefore we need to look into these aspects as well?
I think most engineers
No,
are
they
people
are
too.
machines.
They are machines.
So I have to
Meaning
collect
also they are not just resources, right? So we're also talking about engineers as resources, and so they need to spend their time and have their energy available for the work, right?
Yeah, I mean, so yes, I mean, we're all humans, right? So we should be aware of that. And for me, it comes towards what, like, how we started this conversation, right? So I'm a human in this conversation with my employee, but I'm also a manager, which has a job, and I'm also have my my duties to the company, and they also have their duties to the company, right? And we should always be sure that we work under this umbrella of, okay, there are the duties, and within this playing field, we're allowed to do our best. And looking at that, I feel like, yes, we are allowed to care for each other, but I personally would not like allow or disallow sport. Let's take this example, right? So doing sports or something, saying, hey, please don't do that. Not even, I'm not in the position to allow or disallow, first of all, and secondly, I won't even ask them to change that, right? I would stay on the professional side. That's the area I work under with them, and talk about the performance that might be impacted then. And say, hey, the performance is not going right?
I think allowing and not allowing are maybe harsh words, and it's like black and white. What I see is, let's take a step back. How do you think memberships like Urban Sports Club and the like are offered to employers? It is exactly because Urban Sports Club and the others tell employers, if you grant your employees access to sports, they are more healthy, they are more productive, they are more engaged, better outcomes, la la la. This is how they sell it. And it's actually true. We know that from science that just a simple walk of 30 minutes could replace 10 milligrams of antidepressants. That is quite a lot, actually. And so I wouldn't say allow and not allow. I would rather use the word motivate.
Encourage, yeah.
Yeah.
And yes.
And obviously you cannot tell your employees, hey, I see you are quite depressed. Have you thought about sports? Like this might overstep a boundary, but offering perks like this is a way to motivate them and to keep their balances.
Yeah, I would agree there. So for me, that's the right word there. Still, for your example, I would not say please do. Have you tried sports? I would say for me, if I had the experience myself, for me it helped, right? If I would share experiences again to stay with myself and not impose on the other person. But yeah, like from company perspective, that's a great perk. But there again, as you said, we know from science, right? Yes, science is one thing, but maybe 50% of your workforce is not into sports and it will never help. Then you have to look into, okay, how do I won't impose that on them, right? To name it again and again to say, okay, do it again, please do it. For me,
Have you tried therapy? This brings me actually to the next question. How can leaders address both mental health and output in tech teams? Have you tried therapy? Similar, have you tried sports? While like noticing, hey, you look like quite depressed. The thing is, I feel, and I actually have done a certificate in this one. This might be a valid question. Have you tried therapy? But it needs to be put in a certain way and in the right way. So we talk about certain steps in how you treat a patient. And us as managers, we are at the very first step of, I don't know the term, I believe it's called prevention. And when we notice someone feels down or quite angry, and you won't believe it, also long-term overly happiness is considered not healthy as well. We can create an environment to personally talk with a person in order to understand the situation and also recommend actions. Yeah, we cannot force the person to do things, but we can recommend actions, such as also recommending therapy as well. And this is what I have learned. But the ball is coming to you, Mark, because we're also talking about mental health. Also, in times of everything is getting faster and cheaper. How do you balance mental health and output in tech teams?
I think we quite touched on the topic already, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would also say there's nothing new I could add to that one. I also towards the it's a certain you have to set you've said we have to put it a certain way, right? So have you tried therapy is not the right question, because that's just asking the question is again imposing that there is something that they should see therapy for, and if you've not talked about this before, that might be an attack towards their personal. There again, I would stay with myself. Like I had also that in the past. I then tell people I'm worried about you personally. Like, so for me, right, myself, I'm worried about you. I know you had some history there. So, and that I would share with them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's not a surprise that even memberships to apps
Mental health.
that support with mental health issues are also being offered as a perk by companies nowadays to exactly not just offer the physical aspects of health, but also the psychological ones. And I can imagine this work wonders. Because I have to say, like, if my boss would come to me and suggest starting therapy, I would not be amused. This would cause resistance a lot. Like, I cannot speak, I can only speak for myself. But I think this is quite a sensitive topic.
Yeah, it's a sensitive topic, and this is why I think it depends on what a relationship you have with the boss, because you think of creating resistance because you think of a boss of someone who's distant. But if you have a boss who you can trust, then your boss can definitely put a suggestion like this because you trust the boss. And this is also something that I have experienced. I wouldn't just like put this sentence to everyone, because I know that not everyone is trusting me in a way so that I can just simply really deep dive into the mental health of someone. But I have people who actually do trust me in a way that we can talk about their mental health. And therefore, and which I also did, I also said, like, hey, you have your therapist in that country. Don't you want to try out also a therapist in this country? Because then it will be paid by health insurance here, for example, and might also be more available and things like that. So there is the case that if you have built a certain trust in a way that you can talk about this, and you also have the professionality of how to talk about it. And as I said, there are certificates that you train on how to talk about this kind of stuff as well in the right environment. Then it's possible. But of course, naturally we think of our boss of someone who's very distant, and therefore we naturally would build resistance. So I totally can understand your point, Oliver.
Yeah, I also have to admit, in most of the cases I have experienced bosses who were not trained in raising such a topic, not at all, and who remained quite distant and just saw me as a resource that they can squeeze out.
Mm-hmm. And this is also something that, like, so first of all, we need to notice that humans are like not just simply resources, they're also humans. They come with good days and they come with bad days. And then the next thing is basically, as a manager, we need to notice that someone has emotions. How do I deal with someone else's emotions? Yeah. How can I, like, touch this person without touching too much, so that I can put the person into the right direction of recovery, if there's something going on. And then also, how can, for this purpose, to navigate and prevent any bigger damage, how can I build trust with a person so that I can utilize these trust points later in order to navigate? And these are things that managers need to understand when they become managers.
And then there's as you said, so when they become managers, I feel like that's might also be dangerous to leave it as it is, because if I think of somebody just going into, hey, like they get promoted to manager and try to implement this, right? It can get towards the I think there was your last episode or something with the friendship, like don't hire your friends, also like becoming friends with the employees. It can be fun, but it can also become towards the not so fun point, and being still aware, like this is work, and also talk about it this way, right? So if your friend then asks you for a promotion and you say, like, your performance, the output that did not increase, like why should I give, like, having these talks, right? Why should you get a promotion? Let's talk about this honestly and things like this. So this is then on also seeing humans as resources, right? In some points like even I have to see my employees as resources when I'm planning their time. Then they are like their time is resource for me. I have to work with this. So yeah.
And the term resource just comes from economics. It's not made to downgrade people from humans to objects. Like I have to.
But that's how it's being used in media, right? So that's a
yeah. It always has this tonality. What I wanted to say is when I interview people and I ask them about their career aspirations, lots of them tell me, I want to become a leader. And it's never really clear why they want to become a leader. They just see this as a natural thing to do when stepping from senior to whatever level. Oh yeah, someday I will have power over things and humans. This is the way it should be. And I think most of them dramatically underestimate the fact how much effort and what a different skill set it needs to manage people. It's the most complicated thing that we have. Technology is way easier. Okay.
I would agree. I would agree personally. Yeah. It's more predictable. I think that's what makes it easy.
And I also see that most companies do not support those people at all when growing from individual contributor to leadership position. They just hand out these promotions. They just hand out the titles and the money because people demand so, especially in fields of industries where there is dramatic lack of skilled workforce. People just get promotions out of nothing and then are left alone in the dark when it comes to actually performing these tasks. And when I then speak to people about how they lead, the thing they will always tell me is how many people they lead, but not the way of the leadership. And when I start to drill down, there is not much. There is, checking their numbers and answering questions. This is how they imagine to be a leader. But I think we all agree that there is so much more.
Also,
And
the
I
other
like
way
this, the question that you put, like, how are you leading? Like, how do you do that? Because like leading is passive if you look at it, right? You only can lead if people follow you. So the following is the active part, and you have to do actions, but you cannot actively be the leader without a followership. So there have to be people which follow you. For me, that's how I see it, right? So yes, you do active things to become into leadership position, but it's not like I'm just leader and now
force people to follow you, right?
Yeah. So leading is not an act, like not an action, right? So the term leading itself is not the action. You do other things in a certain way that leads to leading.
Yeah, Showcat, hello.
There she is. It's also very clear who leads whom.
So you cannot force people to follow you, and this also supports Oliver's point of like there are people who think leading is about applying power, and that's definitely not the case. At least not in the world that we live in here. Maybe in very autocratic states, yes, but not here. So we, like, our followers have the choice to follow us or not to follow us. And therefore, the only thing that we can do is to motivate them. And therefore, in order to motivate them and to make them follow us, is we need to understand them. We need to understand that we have the same goals, and then also the same encouragement of like following these goals. Does it actually make sense for the follower to follow me? Yeah, this is the thing that we need to apply here, and especially for those who think leading is about applying power. It's actually not.
I think that. Birgit, I think that. Yes, but it's.
Tell me how.
I think that's the again a negative connotation towards the word power, because as a leader you intuitively, like you get power and you have to apply it, but in the right way. So not transform power into pressure, for example, or into force, right? To force other people, as you said, but use it in the right way. Because so I know when I went into a leadership position, the manager position, I had more power I have this power over my people. I can make decisions that is just intuitively, it's there. And I have to use it the right way to motivate, as you said, for example, and to also, I have more power inside the company to clear the ways for my employees to go the way, right? So I can create opportunities because I have the power to do these things. So I feel like power itself is not just, it's negatively connotated, but you cannot lead without power.
What do you think of, like, do you say that people would be happy with what you are doing when they see you are doing things that they don't want to do or want to have?
I didn't
Because
get that.
I think it's
but
very easy to lead if you do things that they want to have or want to do.
And what's the question? If I feel like it's
like
easy, or
like
I also don't get the question.
You are a new manager, and you are applying processes that your people don't like. Do you think they are happy with the changes?
If they don't like it, they're not happy. So again, then it's, and I like it in the English language, right? It's this where you can say, if you cannot, if somebody tells something and you don't understand what they say, you can say, you say, I can't follow you, right? That's the English term. And for me, that's in this point, if I make a decision and they cannot follow me, they won't follow me as a leader in that moment. Maybe, and there's a difference for me between following and liking, right? I can still follow my leader if they make decisions that I don't agree with in that moment. But if I understand why they did them or why they had to do them, then I would still be able to follow them. Might not happen all the time, but for me, that's how I look at it. If I make a decision, I try to explain why I did this decision in that moment and why it is the way it is. And I still would listen to, like, if I'm in the position, I would listen to feedback. If they would give me feedback why they don't like the process, I'm not almighty. I'm not making the right decision all the time. I listen to what they say, and if there's some value in there, I would try to apply it.
I'm just saying, because there has been a couple of times that I have experienced where leaders have decided something, may or may not properly communicated it, and therefore a bunch of like at least 50% of the department has then left the company. You know, and this is why, like, sometimes as a leader, that this can happen because you see, okay, the goals have changed, and so the people don't follow this goal anymore. But sometimes you want to keep this stuff, and you're quite surprised about the people leaving, and this is because people have applied power of, like, in terms of, I didn't encourage the people to follow me, but I just said, you need to follow me. So this is how I define power for this episode now, so that we understand it. And this is why I think people need to learn to understand their followers, their employees, in order to, like, make the right decisions. Is this something that I can apply now, or is this something that I can apply with this amount, like this amount of change, or do I need to do this step by step so people can, like, get used to it? And also, listening is very important if I do a change, and in applying power as well. Even in small teams, when you have like a team lead or a tech lead who says, we need to change how we commit to the source code, this even can create frictions. And so you need to, as a team lead or tech lead, you need to apply listening abilities in order to come to, like, a common commitment to the new change. Right. And so
for me, it's how I learned that is, like, for me, it was easy to, when I transitioned from developer execution to managerial work, for me, I reflected on the work I did, right? So in my new environment to learn from that. And how I observed it is, for me, it was easy to apply this rule. If you're in tech, you might know this, that as a developer, you're writing code 20% of the time and reading code 80% of the time. And for me, that was the same thing in managerial work, right? I listen 80% of the time and I execute 20% of the time. And that's how it was easy for me to apply that pattern, learning from that. Okay, it's important to do that.
That's a cool pattern. So Mark, let's come to the last question of this episode. What was your most positive interview experience?
I think so. I cannot think of one specific. For me, it was like, since we did this change of, we talked about this earlier with the coding challenge, right? Since we did this change of coding challenge plus presentation, I really enjoyed a lot of interviews, because I got, as you said, Oliver, I got to know more of the soft skills, right? So, and that's what I noticed before. It was always after interviews, it was hard for me to judge, is it the right person or not? And with this way, since we do it this way, I really enjoy a lot of the interviews, and it also makes it easier for me, because I have to make the decision in the end, do I want to work with this person or not? So that was a change that made interviews pleasant for me, I would say.
And when you interviewed for a job, what was your most positive experience in this role as being interviewed?
Clarity, I think, was the core part in the positive experience. On the other hand, the negative part in the current market is more like, okay, you have like, I'm sure, like 5 or 6 interviews and with coding challenges, and you don't know when or how you will get answers. And I enjoy interviews where I know, okay, until end of next week, I will get the information. And it also happens, and I have clarity who I will talk to about what all my future steps will be. That's what I really enjoy.
Thank you very much, Mark, for being here in this episode.
Thanks for having me.
And we see each other with another topic next time. And yeah, bye-bye. Thank you very much for listening.